Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole McGatz, and this is What's Working. What's Working is a show where I speak with business leaders in their field about the tools, habits, products, philosophies, what have you, that are working for them. In a world today, we oftentimes prioritize innovation and newness, and I want to find a space where we can celebrate some of the things that are working for us that have really stood the test of time. I am so excited for my guest today. So I have Carrie Pinkham, who is the VP of People at Ascent, which is a company that helps financial customers manage their regulatory obligations. Carrie and I have actually worked together professionally once back in, I guess, the end of last year. I guess it is the middle of this year now. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed working with Carrie so much. And so it was a no-brainer to ask her to join my podcast. And so we have a really great topic today about being a working mother. So I'm so excited. Carrie, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Nicole. I agree. We had a great time working on that search together. Thanks for inviting me on the show today.
Absolutely. So Carrie, what's on your mind? What's working for you?
Yeah, so Nicole, when you first asked me what's working for me, I thought of a lot of different ways we could go here, but being a working mom is what works for me and what works for our family. And so that was really kind of what came to mind at first. When I think back to prior, to motherhood, I was sort of in my dream job at the time. I had worked really hard to get there to be a director of talent acquisition at a digital risk and investigations firm. I was there to set up the recruiting function and hire a team and really help grow the company. And it was a global position. So it was just all really exciting. And, that excitement continued personally as I was making some life changes. And, during that pregnancy, I had full intentions of going back to work. We got, kind of unexpectedly surprised with an early arrival of my first child, Jack. And it was hard it's a big transition for anyone to go through, but then to have, a child come early, who isn't healthy, is a pretty scary situation. And, we spent a good portion of the maternity leave like in the NICU too. So by the time we were finally getting home and getting situated, it was almost time to, line up a nanny and get back to work. Definitely a jolting, kind of atypical first parent experience for us. And I think it did take, a lot to sort of push through and come back. There's a lot of things that I think about in that experience, but I have a lot of people to thank in that process, from the
Awesome.
coworkers to my family. Yeah.
Good. That's so difficult to go through and like to think about going through that alone. I mean, it's amazing that you had a really good support system.
When I think back, there's a lot of people that I want to, thank for that period of time because it was really challenging to come back. And I think what was even harder is I had this conception that it was going to be easier as time went on. I'd heard, oh, the newborn phase is so hard, but once they start napping or once they start doing this. Well, I had a baby who wasn't meeting developmental milestones. We were at a lot of specialist appointments. We had, extra appointments, back when I went back to work. I had to go to a lot of doctors during the workday. And it was emotionally draining too. So it was just a lot to sort of kind of keep pushing through. I think that there's a number of people that helped me during that period of time. Obviously, my husband, Matt, um, he was working at a law firm with really intense hours. We decided together if we were both going to continue to work that, we needed to make some changes. And he left the law firm, who were still very like near and dear to all the people at the law firm today. And he went in-house to a position, and that was definitely a game changer for us as a two, working parent household. My company at the time, which this would have been like 2013. It was just a really different time, even 10 years ago in corporate America. And I think back to how flexible the founders that I was working with at the time were. I went to them not right away. It was probably maybe 6 to 9 months after I came back from maternity leave. And I kind of said, I'm not sure I can continue working. And they were like, what do you need? And so that was incredible. I mean, I flipped to a 4-day work week. I had a couple days a week that I could work from home. I started to hire grow the team. So there were a lot of things that my company did at the time that I am super thankful for, because I might not be a working mom today if they hadn't made those adjustments for me. So I'm forever grateful to Ed Strauss and Eric Friedberg for doing that. Um, and my team at the time, just being able to count on everybody. That I had a really talented team of recruiters, and they were so understanding and supportive, and stepped up too. And hopefully they feel like there were growth opportunities for them, during my various maternity leaves, or in times that I like couldn't be at meetings and things. I'm kind of forever indebted to those ladies. Literally just had a Zoom catch up call with them yesterday. So like we're all still really connected.
Yeah.
We're kind of forever going to be in each other's lives. Obviously, probably goes without saying, but I'm going to say it. My family, just grandparents, aunts and uncles, that really stepped in for us and were a support system. Everything from, just being there emotionally, but also babysitting, giving us some time like away out. One thing that I think people don't think about is when you have a nanny or daycare, those really just cover the workday.
Yeah.
So there's not that extra time sometimes for you and your partner. And so it really is special when you can have, friends and family just offer like, hey, do you need a night out? And that was great.
That's
And then
amazing.
I don't share this really that often with people. And I think I should, because this person played like a huge role during those first couple of really tough years. um, I had a career coach, and we talked about everything from my professional development to struggles with, being Jack's mom and parent. And I really am indebted to that person for, giving me that guidance, helping me prioritize what was important to me. Sometimes you need that outside party, I think, to help you. And especially when it's a, life transition you've never gone through before, I think just asking for that help is super important.
That's awesome. I mean, as they say, it takes a village, right?
Yes, yes. And I would still say that today, 10 years in.
Were you always set on being a working mom, or were there, I mean, I think you shared that, there were some times where you kind of questioned it, or, weren't sure that you would be able to.
Yeah. I mean, when I think back, even before I started working, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And my initial path, actually, when I was younger, I thought I would be a teacher someday. So I envisioned working, but I think I envisioned more family time or something. Like I didn't really necessarily have like that corporate America destination in mind when I was growing up. And then when I got into it, I loved it. So, kind of going way back, I would say I didn't necessarily have this intention all along. Um, but then after, almost 10 years of my career and building it and moving up and getting promoted and moving to different companies and leading a team, it was really hard to kind of walk away from that career. And I would say there's a couple of times where I for sure deviated from maybe staying a working mom. Obviously, I kind of already touched on the very early years of Jack and, the unknowns there. Today we know that he has an underlying genetic disorder that's pretty rare. There's not a whole lot of information about it still. But even today, we still have a lot going on with Jack, and he's now 9 years old. So there's moments in time that I for sure, I really have to kind of divert my attention to his needs and his appointments and things. And I've always been really fortunate to have managers and founders and executives I've worked with that are just really understanding and supportive. I think I give a lot back to the companies that I've worked for. And so that flexibility, it's just kind of become like that really wonderful sort of two-way street. But the times that I felt like I might deviate, when we added more children to the mix,
Yeah.
each family member that came along, and my other kids are Sam and Annie, you know, it was a huge transition, just adding another family member. And, is this really possible? Can I keep having a job where I'm traveling sometimes? Can we keep working at the same pace that we are? And we've been very fortunate to have long-term nannies with our family, support us through those transitions. So I think, that kind of helped push me forward.
Yeah.
And I do think that corporate America got more flexible in the last 10 years. Every couple of years, it became a little bit more normal to have work from home flexibility. Obviously, this kind of pre-pandemic when I had all of the kids, but it got a little easier as years went on. And I think as you make more of a name for yourself in your companies, like everyone has that trust that you're getting your job done. But lastly, and this is, I think, a big deal for parents in general, is childcare. Every time we were really lucky to have wonderful nannies work with our family. In most cases, they've moved out of the state, and that's been the reason that those relationships have sort of like, work relationships would come to a close. We're actually in touch with all of them still today, but I think that has probably been the biggest like jolt and question each time there's a panic, like, well, this person's so entrenched in our lives and our kids are so close to them. Like, how are they ever going to be replaced? And how are we going to kind of keep marching on? And I've told myself now I'm not going to panic the next time this happens, because we've always found the right person in the end.
Yeah.
But I think childcare, especially amidst the pandemic, became so hard for families. And even today, I'm hearing daycares are really hard to get into. And so it's a stressor that I wish there was a better solution for. But that's probably even more than like, as we grew the family, it was like, do we have coverage? Do we have the right type of coverage for us? Not just logistically, but like we've always really been wanting to have the right people, with our family, to emotionally support and guide our kids when we're not available and we're working. So that's a big one.
That's amazing. What do you think has made being a working mom right for you?
I feel really balanced now today. I don't think I've always felt that way. It's gotten better as the years have gone by. But there's a few things that do keep me going. I'm really proud of the career that I've built. It would be really hard for me now to walk away from it.
Yeah, you've done some amazing stuff at Ascent just prior to there. I mean, it's a no-brainer, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, there's the obvious, like, contributing to my family's like household income. That is definitely a thing. Kids are in, activities, and kids want to go on vacations, and of course we do too. Like, those things do cost money. So, being able to contribute to that, I love being a part of that. I'm really excited to show my kids that I have a career and that I am, a working parent, but also, a mom, and I believe I'm a pretty hands-on mom. I like that I've been able to show my kids that this is something that I can do. It certainly has made me a more empathetic and well-rounded executive and head of people. We've gone through a lot of things in our personal family, and I think it's helped me lead with, a flexible mindset. If there's been executives I've worked with that maybe didn't have that same like level of wanting to be flexible for employees or wanting to put the right perks and benefits in place, I feel like I can really advocate for people now because of my lived experiences. And, I'm a pretty open, I would say vulnerable, coworker with people. And I think, in turn, people feel comfortable with me in that way. I think also work has just been a really beautiful outlet for me. I was recently asked, like, what are some of your hobbies? And it's funny because I think a lot of people, I think a lot of my, friends and professional friends would say, at this juncture with like small children and work, there really isn't a whole lot of time for hobbies. Ironically, like work is kind of like, that's the me time. And that's the time that, because we have had some difficult things in our family, I feel like for me, it's been a nice thing to turn to, and it's like a stabilizing force. Yes, there can certainly be stressors that happen with work. It's not like it is still work. But I think for the most part, when I've had like, emotional family stress or something, it's something that I can turn to. And it's something to, make me feel that positive energy and that I can do something productive.
Yeah. How has your decision to be a working mom influenced others around you?
At my previous company, I led a team of really talented recruiters. It was pretty fun because we all went through a lot of life changes kind of together around the same time. I was actually the first one to become a mom. And kind of quickly thereafter, like it was rapid succession. We had, multiple women in our team were expecting at the same time, which was really fun. Um, but I hope that like maybe a small part of me returning to work and kind of pushing forward had something to do with them also all returning to work. They all are still working moms today. They've all progressed their careers and have these wonderful families. Like I said, I hope I just maybe played like a small role in that, in whether it was providing them flexibility or advocating for better benefits at the firm that we were working for, or providing coverage to them when needed, or emotional support.
So you talked a lot about like how being a working mom influenced your coworkers and peers and kind of those folks underneath you. And I'm curious, how did it affect like the companies that you worked at too?
I think a few different ways. When I think about the last company where I had this wonderful team, um, when I actually first started working at the business, there were not that many women at the firm. And probably more in the internal functions like recruiting, like my own, but less so in the consulting. It was a consulting firm, and it did require travel, and it was digital forensics, incident response consulting. And so that's a pretty male dominated, um, industry, and was certainly at the time. Um, and, a couple of things I noticed, I mean, this predates having my own kids. I was noticing when we were on calls with candidates, women would ask about what are the policies, was there parental leave, what kind of benefits do you have, what is there flexibility? At the time, we had these digital forensics labs, and it required people to be actually like physically in the labs with the digital assets, with laptops that had been recovered from corporations and things like that, to do like the appropriate scans and investigations, things that you really couldn't do from home. There was a lot of resistance initially, and I started there back in 2011. And I think over time, just sharing, we're going to miss out on really great talent if we don't make some adjustments, sort of forever changed that particular company. We did get a defined, parental leave in place, and it was a great one. I was definitely helping to lead that charge, but it also took getting some, executive support at the time, that those women themselves had not had a very long maternity leave, right? So it was like a big change to sort of, let's shift this for the future. Let's make this better for the people going forward. And it's going to attract and retain employees. I remember also there was a woman at the firm. This isn't something that, necessarily I did, but I did help advocate for this. Once I heard her situation, she was going to have to resign, and she had this wonderful offer. I think it was from Apple at the time, where she's going to work from home. She had small children, and it was a big deal that the firm made, this exception that she was going to get to work from home. And it meant her staying at the company 5 more years. So,
Wow.
it's like when we discuss people that have impacted, these changes, if forever, the executives that made that decision of yes, like forever changed, kind of the course of what we thought was acceptable and okay at the firm. It also was really important that that particular employee, like, that meant the world to her, that the firm was so flexible, and it kept her motivated and retained her. And when her kids got older, um, and they were off at school, she ended up going back to the office like 5 days a week. So it was just like she needed that temporary, like,
Yeah.
support and flexibility, and it made her, I think, even a more committed employee to the firm. But I certainly was advocating for those, when I was asked, because I was in the HR and recruiting function, like, is this something we should do? It was like, absolutely. This is going to help us not only retain this one individual, but it will mean something to other people at the firm too. And it'll be a place that people want to work. So, that was something, that I think I did help shape. I think we'll probably get into it a little bit later in the conversation, but When I came to Ascent, there had not been a need to have like a parental leave policy in place because there hadn't been anyone that had become a parent. There have been people that were parents already that worked at Ascent, but no one that had actually gone through that transition during their time, there. And I started at the company and someone's, significant other was expecting. And so it was like, well, no better time than the present to put something in place. And it forever, did shape what we did going forward and how we support, new parents at Ascent. So a lot can be done. I mean, even at junior stages of my career where I wasn't a working mom yet myself, if you see opportunities to help support working parents, it really does go a long way and helps retain people in the long run. So yeah, I guess I'd say those are a couple of examples of things I've done and shaped.
What are some lessons learned you've had from being a working mom?
So I've almost been a working mom for about 10 years, and I've definitely, felt like stretched thin on the work or family front at times. And I think just understanding that we all have our seasons of strife and difficulty is really important to kind of pushing forward with the career and raising a family at the same time. I think just having the recognition of that is helpful, but also knowing to reach out, when to reach out for help. And I kind of equate this to my career too. And, just when you're a junior in your career, you kind of want to have all the answers. You don't want to mess up. It's kind of embarrassing that sometimes ask for help because you feel like I should know this. But if you kind of think about it in this way, I think it's helpful if you kind of relate it to parenting. You do need help, and it's how you progress in your career is getting feedback and asking for guidance and seeking out, whether it's formal or informal mentors along the way, but you're paying attention to the people that you admire in your career. How do they approach work? How do they approach leadership? I think do the same thing with parenthood. If you have people that you are in your life personally or professionally that are parents, and you think that they're doing it well, or that they have experience going through this transition before you, seek them out, ask for that help, because it won't bode well for you, I think, if you don't. Everybody needs kind of some advice and guidance along the way. And that's something that I think I personally struggled with early on and wanted to have all the right answers. And it's hard when you're a mom or dad. You kind of want to intuitively know what to do, and sometimes you just don't.
Yeah.
So I did have to seek out advice from others. And I have had the good fortune of having an older sister who's about 3 years older than me, and being really close with her peer group of friends. They're now my friends too. So many of them are working moms and have really, really impressive careers. And being able to seek out their advice because they had gone through the transition sooner than I had was helpful. Just seeing that they were able to pull it off, like work and, have great personal lives and wonderful families. And I do remember some advice from them as well. Because there's years where, you feel like I didn't really push myself in my career. I didn't grow professionally maybe that much this year. And they helped me kind of look back and reflect on the fact that might have been the case, but maybe it was a really big year personally. Like maybe there was a new baby in the family, so you weren't sleeping that much. So could you really push yourself that hard, to do something different at work? And I think kind of having that recognition that like I just felt like before kids, my core focus was my career. And now I have it's like two core focuses, and being able to kind of figure out that like sometimes one's going to take precedent over the other. And there might just be years where it's a little, you're kind of just getting by. You're doing your job, but you're not doing some amazing projects, or you didn't get a promotion that you maybe had your eyes on 18 months earlier. And that's okay. And I think having that group of individuals that helped me kind of have that perspective that I didn't yet personally have from the lived experience was super helpful to me. So I thank those ladies too, for that advice along the way.
Awesome. What do you think companies can do to better support working moms and just women generally, right? Who are maybe thinking about making or going through this big life shift? How can
Yeah.
companies better support them?
I mean, there's so many things.
Too
I
many?
guess, there's a laundry list here, Nicole, but I mean, in no particular order, the first thing that comes to mind is benefits. Selecting really good medical, vision, and dental plans where the company is covering solid portion of the premiums along the way. Um, that is a little more atypical in, the startup world that I am currently, in and have been in on a couple of occasions. Um, it can be hard to actually get those good plans like locked in. But I think it does certainly go a long way. And then if, a portion of the premium is covered by the company, that's super helpful too, because, we know that healthcare is really expensive. Um, there's also other benefits or perks that I would recommend, like dependent care FSAs, for instance. That is something that really doesn't cost the company money to do. It's more of an administrative, like initially just getting it administratively set up. But I think that's a pretty meaningful way to support families and that's actually, not just for children, but you can use a dependent care FSA towards senior care as well. So, if you have an employee that is taking care of a senior parent and has, care needs like during the workday where, like a nurse or something like, at their parent's home, that is something like a dependent care FSA can be used for that type of coverage, as well as, nanny expenses or daycare expenses or even summer camp expenses. So there's a lot that falls under there, and it's really just a kind of a quick, easy administrative thing for the HR team to set up. Leave policies, I mentioned that, a few minutes ago, but it's shockingly, kind of surprisingly how startup environments don't really have all these things defined always. So, I'd recommend anyone that's going into a startup to, if you're going to make this transition, kind of make sure that there is a policy in place, or ask the company about, are there plans to make some policies around, parental leave, medical leave, disability leave, those types of things. And, thankfully, I mean, a lot of companies have gotten much better at this in recent years, but there's always room for improvement. Above all else, flexibility. The pandemic really shifted the way corporate America runs and how our personal lives totally coincide with our work lives. As an example, I work from home pretty much fully all the time. So sometimes parents just want or may need to break away for like a 30-minute window to do something special, like be a mystery reader at preschool or go to an awards ceremony for their high schooler who's graduating. And they happen during the workday. And I think that companies will find if they provide that flexibility, they're going to have much more like dedicated and loyal employees, because the company's recognizing them as, as a parent, as a person, like their personal lives do matter.
Like a whole human, right? You're
Yes,
the things
yes.
outside of work.
Yes. And, and this goes beyond being a parent and family stuff. If there's something that's important for, you as a friend or, pet parent, like just being human and letting people, have some flexibility. Hopefully employees they don't take advantage of the situation. I think it's less common that they do. I think giving people some autonomy to do some important things that sometimes happen during the middle of the workday, certainly does go a long way. I heard this term a couple of years ago, and it really stuck with me, the idea of leaving loudly. Basically, it's that idea that, if you are going to be out of the office as an executive or a manager, be explicit about it, explain why you're going to be out, kind of be vulnerable and share, why you're out. Of course, there's things that sometimes people feel very, private about, like a doctor's appointment or something. That's probably not the example I'm thinking of. More like, hey, I'm going to my kids' XYZ game and
Yeah.
it starts at 5 o'clock. I have to drive, gotta go pick the, kiddo up at 4. Like just explaining like this is what I'm doing. And I think modeling that behavior that there is work-life
Yeah.
balance. If you're going on vacation, I do see a lot of executives just throughout all my years of working, not, kind of like not putting it in their calendars or just being kind of quiet about it. It actually I think is unhelpful to employees feeling comfortable
Yeah.
doing what they need to do in their lives or for their families. And so I really like this idea of just like leaving loudly and, being explicit with what you're doing and when you're doing it and why. And I think it gives people that grace to do it themselves too.
No, I think
Um,
you're spot on, like the normalization of it, right? And like,
yeah,
I think you're right. It's like if my leader isn't doing it, like how am I supposed to feel comfortable doing it myself?
right, right. And I think the more that you share with a direct report, they're going to share what they're doing. And it kind of creates like a closer bond and relationship. And, I found when I was a manager, it was helpful to know what was going on in people's lives. If there was something stressful coming up, or if there was something exciting coming up for us to celebrate, or if they needed some extra time off, or maybe they didn't even know they needed that extra time off, but like being able to suggest that you don't know that if you just are kind of quiet about why you're being out. So I think if you're open, you'll kind of get that in return and it kind of is a win-win for everybody. Um, I think too, and this is like a really small but easy way, just simply asking about people's kids.
Yeah.
People love talking about their kids. They love sharing videos. They love sharing, pictures. Um, just, seeing a little tidbit about something. I think it kind of establishes that rapport if it's someone new that you're working with, or it's just a nice thing to do. um, but I think that's a way to definitely support a working parent, just to ask about their kids because it is a really big part of their life.
Yeah.
Um, one thing that we do at Ascent that I think is kind of fun and special is we have like a Family Fridays Slack channel, and people post pictures of, family members, friends, pets, like anyone that they kind of deem family.
Yeah.
And just their special moments, whether it's like a throwback picture or something that happened over the weekend or a holiday celebration. It's just been a really nice way, especially in this fully remote environment, to get to know each other better.
That's amazing.
So
And it's like building that community feeling, right, within work and building that comfort and to your point, that
yeah,
loyalty, right?
yes, people feel more connected. And I think when, working from home, people felt a little maybe less connected than they used to their coworkers. And maybe even like a little bit less connected to the company itself because you're not going in an office together necessarily. And like having that camaraderie, I think it's a little harder to find today. So these small things like this, I think just, certainly are meaningful. People feel connected and supported, and I think in turn you see people stick around at companies longer that are doing things like this.
Amazing. Okay.
Amazing.
Well, Carrie, thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely. I had a blast.
I did too. And, this is, I think, markedly different than some of the other shows that I've done. A lot of them have been so focused on kind of the operationalization of things. And I think hearing
Yeah,
and having someone share a deeply personal story that I think really is going to resonate with a lot of folks. And I think even too, just get companies thinking about the different things they can be doing is really impactful and I know meaningful to a lot of people. So thank you for sharing everything.
absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. And everyone for watching. Thank you so much for joining What's Working. It's meaningful to me and to Carrie for you guys joining. I don't think I say that enough or have ever even said that at the end of a show. So thank you guys for joining. It's you that I do this for. So thank you. And I'll see you next time.